Hi.
Hello.
I think we're supposed to turn our camera, but yeah, אנחנו אמורים לכבות את המצלמה, ושפיטר ייכנס, להדליק אותה.
לכבות את המצלמה, הולנדה?
כן, כן. אוקיי, בדיוק. Bradley, you have to get in.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. My name is Reverend Peter Fast, and welcome to our second of 3 lectures. Tonight's lecture is Israel's military challenges, and this is achieving military goals while maintaining code of ethics and humanity. And we welcome Colonel Amiram Jakira to tonight, and it is also my honor once again to share tonight's presentation in partnership with Winnipeg Friends of Israel with Yolanda Papini-Polak. And before we officially launch into tonight, I want to give you a brief explanation of how tonight will be presented to you. Amiram will give no doubt an amazing presentation tonight. And then following that, there will be a question and answer period. Okay, so we hope to devote a decent time for any of your questions to Colonel Jakira. If you look at the bottom, you'll see a question and answer button toggle. You can click on that near at the end, and you can then ask your questions. And okay, and you can then ask your questions, and I will moderate those questions and pitch them to Amiram, and we'll get through as many as we can. The second housekeeping issue that I'd like to just clarify or make known to all of you is that all three of these lectures, last week's was the normalizing Jew hatred. We had Kasim Hafiz with Kufi, Christians United for Israel. So he presented last week. Amiram presents this week, and then we have another presentation on June 24th. All 3 lectures are being recorded and will be edited. And then what we're going to do is release them all at the same time to anybody that has registered, whether you've been on these calls, all 3 of them or not, you will get the chance to then review them. So we will make sure that you get them. So as I mentioned, my name is Reverend Peter Fast, and I am the National Director of Bridges for Peace Canada. I want to just share a little bit about Bridges for Peace for those of you who may be hearing about Bridges for Peace for the first time or didn't attend last week's lecture. Bridges for Peace, we are Christians supporting Israel and building relationships between Christians and Jews in Israel and around the world. So we have kind of 2 sides of the same coin. On one side, we work towards reaching out to the church, educating the church, resourcing the Christian community in the country of Canada, but we're also in 8 different nations around the world and internationally located in Jerusalem, where our headquarters is located. But the purpose
Peter,
of
I have
yes.
to stop you for a second because apparently there is somebody with the name Amiram Jakira with a picture here, and it's not Amiram. So we have to remove this.
There we go.
Okay, thank you.
There we go. Yes, I just removed that person. Thank you, Yolanda. I was on a roll, everyone, and I was seeing that strange picture. So thank you for pointing that out. Yes, the wonderful powers of being a co-host. So as I was speaking, as I was talking about, we connect with the Christian community to educate and resource them on the importance of Israel. This is on multiple different levels, both in the Bible, throughout post-biblical history, and right into the modern state of Israel. I don't know if the same person is trying to, no. So we stand against all forms of anti-Semitism. We have prayer networks. We connect with people. Oh, let's see, gotta remove. We have another person here and a question next time. Okay, so Andrew, if you see anybody just pop up like that isn't one of us, just remove them, please. Okay, and so we have an incredible donor network, and we're a volunteer-driven organization as well. So in Israel, which is what all of our programs are there to support the needy of Israel, and you will see in a moment here a quick video. But our volunteers, and pre-COVID, they number between 60 and 70 Christian volunteers from about 15 different countries around the world, and they go to Israel for short-term, long-term volunteer opportunities to do and support our incredible programs there. So that's on the one hand of us reaching out into the Christian church to understand the roots of our faith, which are Hebraic in nature and the foundation of our Christian faith, but also to bring Christians and Jews together in unconditional love and respect and bringing our communities together. So on the other side of that coin, we exist to support the Jewish community in our nations. As I mentioned, we stand with the Jewish community in solidarity. We stand against all forms of anti-Semitism, but also our work in Israel, which is incredible work that we do. We're feeding over 22,000 needy Israelis every month, distributing about 60 tons of food. We work in schools with hundreds of children. We support proudly the Israeli Medical Corps, Magan David Adom, which is like the Red Cross ambulance medical service of Israel. We do home repairs. We have helped over 85,000 Jewish people make Aliyah, move to Israel, which is an amazing thing. And once they're in Israel, if they have needs, because many of them coming from the former Soviet Union or other nations and even coming out of poverty, many of them need continued support. And so we are privileged to do that. And so we'll take on hundreds of families per month for a year sponsorship. So it really is the joy and pleasure of my life to devote my time and my career and my energy and my passion to standing with the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, standing with the Jewish community in the diaspora. And it is just such a pleasure to welcome Amiram tonight and to once again partner with Yolanda. So I invite you right now to just sit back and watch this short video before Yolanda then introduces herself.
Bridges for Peace. Christians supporting Israel and building relationships between Christians and Jews in Israel and around the world. Bridges for Peace, 50 years of blessing Israel and the church through compassion and revelation. Compassion. Feeding Israel's hungry. Caring for Israel's needy. Repairing homes. Giving hope to children in poverty. Helping the Jewish people return to their ancient homeland. Assuredly, I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. Revelation, bringing the Bible to life in its ancient context, revealing the truth of Israel's prophetic significance, telling the story of Israel's miraculous rebirth, connecting Christians and the Jewish people through a grassroots global team of Christian representatives. For God's instruction shall go forth from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Bridges for Peace, a Matthew 25 ministry dedicated to supporting the nation of Israel and bridging the centuries-old gap between Christians and Jews. Bridges for Peace, your Israel connection.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Peter, for telling us all about Bridges for Peace. I don't think we can find a more Zionist organization. I'd like to just say a few words about Winnipeg Friends of Israel, and I will be short. Winnipeg Friends of Israel is a grassroots organization. It was established in 2014 during Operation Protective Edge, when a group of activists felt a need to disseminate Israel's narrative because of biased media. We felt that the media as a whole presented an unfair, out of context, and very partial reports about Israel. And we wanted to do something to change it. As the years evolved, we have managed to help change perceptions about Israel by organizing rallies, reaching out to other communities, but especially through education. If we thought that we made strides during the years, Operation Guardians of the Walls prove to us that our work is even more important and needed in 2021. We are very proud to stand with Israel and will continue to do our part to fight anti-Israel, anti-Zionism, and anti-Semitism where and when we can. If you are on Facebook, please remember to click like on our page so you will be able to see our posts and share our posts with your friends and relatives so they can see them as well. I'd like to talk a little bit about the talk that we're going to hear tonight, and you will have an opportunity to ask your questions. Colonel Richard Kemp called Israel the most humane army in the world. And as a British soldier himself, he knew what he was talking about. War is a messy, it's bloody, and it can bring out the worst in humanity. War and humanity are oxymorons, but sometimes a means of surviving. Just like Israel has to protect herself, unfortunately, every few years from rocket attacks from Hamas. The IDF is taking extreme measures to protect innocent lives when fighting in populated areas. No army in the world has used these techniques and methods before. We asked Colonel Amiram Jakira, who's the Israel Defense Attaché to Canada, to tell us more about these measures and how they compromise Israeli military goals. Colonel Jakira was born on a kibbutz in northern Israel. He joined the Israel Defense Forces in 1994 and began his 27-year career in the military as an operational pilot in Israel Air Force. Along the years, he flew many types of air mobility aircrafts and commanded over various squads. He acquired staff experience in Israeli Air Force's headquarters and was promoted to command Wing 15, an Air Force base at Sde Dov. He also served as an instructor at the Israeli National Defense College. He's married and he has 3 children, and he has been the Israeli Defense Attaché to Canada since 2020. We are very honored to have you with us today, Colonel Jakira, and we look forward to hear everything that you have to say.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Yolanda, and thank you very much to Reverend Peter Fast. And to everybody, I would like to thank you for inviting me and to thank you for your support to Israel through all the years, and especially in the past Operation Gardens of the World. I would like to share my presentation. So we will talk less about the background, about Israeli society and politics. As an officer in uniform, I am well aware that officers should be politically aware, but not politically involved. You can ask questions about that, but my answer will be in this spirit. We will focus on the guardians of the world overview and context, Israel military goals, military challenge, especially those evolved from the asymmetric warfare, morals and ethics during warfare, and the Hamas use of misinformation and fake news. Before we start, I would like to present a short overview about what was happened in last May. The tension arose in May 10th, especially about riots in Jerusalem and around the Temple Mount in East Jerusalem. The Hamas threatened to fire rockets toward Israel, and the Hamas narrative was to create a bond between Jerusalem and the Hamas in Gaza. So the Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad fired missiles toward Jerusalem and its surroundings, Ashkelon, and the Gaza envelope. And after a response of the IDF, the Israel Defense Force, and especially by the Air Force, shot many missiles for 10 days, more than 4,400 missiles towards the cities in Israel. The IDF responds with precision strike on terror targets in the Gaza Strip. At the end, more than 1,600 Iron Dome interceptions and 13 Israeli kills and more than 130 Israeli civilians injured. It's very important to understand the context. I can answer more questions about that later, but the context that do we see the Iranian involvement in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and also in Gaza. We see that Iran is assisting the terror organization forced to build up by supplying funds, technical know-how, training, and means. While the Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, uncompromising armed struggle against Israel, military destruction of Israel, those are the goals, and rejection of the two-state solution, and establishment of the sovereign Islamic states on the ruins of Israel. Those are the goals of those two terror organizations. Israel was under fire for more than 11 days, although Israel is sometimes looks as the Goliath in this campaign. It's very important to understand that for 11 days, there were indiscriminate shooting on Israeli cities. For those examples in Petah Tikva, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Tel Aviv, Sderot, many cities and villages in Israel. I would like to show you just at the beginning, and we'll speak about it a little bit later, about the Iron Dome, almost science fiction. This is one of the nights in the middle of the nights in the center of Israel, Tel Aviv and its surroundings. So what were the military goals of this operation? First of all, in the Middle East, there is no unconditional surrender. Like World War II, those pictures present Nazi Germany and the Japan signing the unconditional surrender on the USS Missouri on the shore of Japan. In the Middle East, there is no unconditional surrender. There is no possibility for white flag being from the Hamas or from any other enemies. This is the complexity. Even our, let's say, most glorious war, if there is such a thing as glorious war at all, but most, let's say, unpredicted victory on the Six-Day War 54 years ago. Two pictures. One of them is obviously known as the parachuters in the Western Wall, and the other one is Yossi Ben Hanan, for days Major General Yossi Ben Hanan in the water of the Suez Canal. So the public is looking for the picture of victory, but it's very important to understand that there is no picture of victory in those kind of campaigns of today's war. The goals are limited goals, determined by the leaders, the civilian leaders, the government of Israel. So what were the goals? The goals were to bring an end to the imminent threat to the Israeli civilians and reestablish security. And to do it by weaken and deter Hamas, by eliminating strategic assets and tactical capabilities. The Iron Dome, although it's a defensive system being planned and produced in order to intercept missiles and rockets, including different type of aerial threat, gives us the chance to slow although we would like to, we don't like long wars, we don't like war campaigns because the civilians is under fire, but still gives us the time to do the strike very precisely and with patience. This is the most important things of the Iron Dome. What you can see in the picture, obviously from the indiscriminated shooting of the Hamas, and from the entire Israel, simultaneously defending and intercepting by various launchers of the Iron Dome. The IDF target bank, I would not like to enter each one of them, but just to say that all of them are military targets. All of them are justified according to the international law, government and security institutions that are used to support terror activities, senior commanders, operational terror forces, and military infrastructures. IDF strike on the Hamas, what we call the metro tunnel. I don't like this name. Obviously, it's a slang. It's not a metro. There is no train over there. It's just hundreds of kilometers of underground city used especially to support the Hamas capabilities, including what you can see in the left side, the launchers, the missiles, and many other terror capabilities. It had been struck very precisely by the Israeli Air Force. And sometimes you can see that, like in those pictures, you can see that the whole street was collapsing inside those tunnels. So those tunnels are related directly to the threats on Israeli civilians. UNRWA, the United Nations Organization for Support of the Relief and the Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, although we have many, let's say, there are a lot of Israel critics about the way that UNRWA support the Palestinians and the fact that they're harboring in their own facilities, the Hamas is building these infrastructures. And in here you can see a few examples of the UNRWA condemnation the Hamas of using its schools. Hamas used his people as human shields, and shooting from inside the civilians population area. For example, so you start to understand the challenge of what does it mean to strike and to eliminate these threats when it's been established exactly in the middle of a civilian populated area. I want to speak about the Hamas, about the Al-Jala building. Al-Jala building was a terror infrastructure that also harbored the Al Jazeera and the Associated Press facilities. But it was used by the Hamas military intelligence, research and development unit, and electronic warfare. Especially now it's already been published that that one of the system that was prepared by the Hamas over there used to be or planned to be to arm the Iron Dome. So imagine yourself what impact could it be towards the Israeli defense if that could have been employed in the campaign. The IDF struck this building on May 15th, not before evacuate all the people from the building. There was no casualty, no one casualty in those building strikes. And now, after the campaign ended in June 7th, you can see the ambassador Erdan, the Israeli ambassador to United States and the UN, went to speak to the president of the Associated Press and to report about exactly what was in those buildings. So Israel tried to compensate between the fact that we need to arm and to eliminate the terror organization units and the fact that those units are inside populated area. But Israel is still committed to the freedom of press and the freedom and the safety of all the journalists. So the morals and ethics during warfare. I would argue that the moral and ethics conduct during warfare is the core of the military profession. This is what is being taught by the commanders, by the leaders to all the soldiers, officers in the IDF, and definitely in the Air Force from the very first beginning of their career. The question is how to balance the mission to defend our own citizens and the need to minimize harm to non-combatant civilians on the other side. And it is run case by case, every strike. Is it a ticking bomb? Which means, can we come later or we have to strike now? Because if we don't strike it now, it's like a ticking bomb that could blow and kill Israeli civilians. How is it, how time sensitive is it? It takes years of experience and unique methods have been developed for this kind of warfare. Every loss of life is a tragedy, and I can assure you that no mistakes are ignored. All of them are being investigated, very harsh, and based for learning and self-improvement. How do we mitigate harm to non-combatants? First of all, we do the method that has been called knock on the roof. Knock on the roof. First of all, it's to give a phone calls to all the people that live in the same building or in the same targets. I will show you an example of such a conversation.
اقل شي ساعتين ثلاثه ما يجيش حد يعني اروح عند البرج اروح عند البرج ما خليش حد يجي ماشي حاضر الزنان بتضرب وبعدين ضربتين بعدها ماشي يقول نزل على الارض الفاضيه بقول لك مش الزنان حتضرب اول وبعدين تضربوا البرج ماشي عم هذا لسه ايوه خلص ولا يهمك انا بدي اطلع بس لحظه انا والله عادي الامور طبيعيه هو بده يسمع هو عارف هو مش عارف انه انت غير جو مالك كله طلع من العماره حتى العمارات اللي جنبنا هي واقفين على اسفلت ما في حاجه.
After making these phone calls, hundreds of phone calls, and they get the time, more than 1 hour to evacuate the building, then the small shooting on the it's a warning shooting. That's what you can see. It's a very small munition.
سنة ترجع يا سند
Just to
سنة
verify
ترجع
that if someone was, in case someone was in the building, that he has time to go out. Then this is the reason that you always see those very good and very stable films of those buildings being hit, because they have time to set up those cameras. All the journalists have time to set up the cameras from very far. At the end, sometimes the strike is being aborted because there are civilians, or being delayed because there are civilians in the surroundings of the target. I would like to show you a movie of such a strike being aborted and being delayed, and after that you can see that the strike, you can see the missiles near the civilians' houses.
הפינוי התחיל כבר, דמרי. אנחנו חוזרים לרחוב הראשי כדי לראות באמת את התנועות לכיוון הצומת שביקשת. מעולה. רגע, הנה רגע, זה חשוב. שנייה, יש תנועות מהבתים שצמודים, כרגע מהנמוך, זה שממש צמוד למטלר. אנחנו רואים פינוי. אוקיי, אנשים רצים אחוז מהתנועה. אוקיי. מישהו רץ לקרוא להם, אנחנו רואים כבר 2 לפחות רצו החוצה יחד איתו. היה פינוי עכשיו של אנשים, זהו. יש מטלר למטה. אני רואה את המטלר מבארץ, נמצא פה, רואים 2 שורות כאלה. בשד. מזהים שם פיצוצי משנה רציניים, נכון דמרי? נכון מאוד. וואו. זה רק מראה, ממחיש את הנזק האדיר שהדברים האלה עושים.
The Israeli, the IDF capabilities of very precise shooting in various means allows us allows us a careful use of power, and there is no need to take down a building. There is no appetite for that. So sometimes, if the terror infrastructure is concentrated just in one floor, this is a picture of in a film of such a kind of strike. The very stable picture and film is also a demonstration of how people knew that this strike should come, because they were warned about that. So what does it mean? How do we create careful use of power? First of all, the target choosing and approval is a very, very systematic process based on intelligence and research and many details that need to be planned. What is the surrounding of the targets? If it's in a populated area, what is the population habits? If it's schools, those schools are occupied at the day, but what happened in the night? Is it the hour sensitive? What is the best way to strike at the best direction? We use the smallest necessary damage to achieve the impact we need. If it's a room, if it's just in one room, no need to take out all the floor. If it's just one floor, we can save the building. And this determines the method of the munition that being chosen. How accurate can we be? And what if a bomb hits to the other building nearby? So this is the calculation and the risk that need to be taken care of. I can tell you that there are legal consultants during the approval of every pre-planned targets to see that all the targets, all the strikes are according to the international law. At the end, in the Israeli Air Force, the leader, which means the commander of the aircraft, has the full authority to abort, even if it's just a lieutenant or a captain, and not necessarily a colonel like myself or brigadier general. If you think you're in the air and you think that a non-combatant could be injured, it's your authority, and you have the full authority to abort the strike. At the end, the careful process is time-consuming because every strike needs to be watched with intelligence and surveillance system, and it takes time. This is another film represent how strikes is being cancelled because of civilian nearby.
לא כי יש פה ילדים. יש פה ילדים,
הם זזים מהר, זה לא ילדים?
יש פה ילדים כנראה, אנחנו עוצרים את זה.
נכון? יש פה אחד גדול וכמה קטנים.
אנחנו חושדים בילדים ואנחנו לא נלך על זה, אני חושב שהם ילדים.
כן.
לא כי יש פה ילדים.
יש פה ילדים, הם זזים מהר, זה לא...
Sorry. Okay. One of the things that one of the challenges that we have to deal with in this kind of asymmetric warfare is the challenge of the lies and the misinformation of the Hamas. One of them is the Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad misfire. Misfire is those rockets that fail to cross into Israeli territory and instead explode within the Gaza Strip, causing damage and causing Palestinian casualties. You can see in this movie, for example, it's a misfire of a rocket. In the blue places and the blue point on the Gaza, you can see all the misfires that for 11 days. It's being determined by the very sophisticated Iron Dome radar that can see exactly where those rockets are hit. Another challenge is the fake misinformation and the fake news. Hamas is engaged in a global cognitive campaign against Israel, trying to portray Israel as an inhuman aggressor. As part of this effort, Hamas is encouraging the distributions of lies, misinformation, and fake news. Mainly in the social media, you can see just 3 examples, but there are dozens more of pictures being collected from many other campaigns and being used once more like original, but they're not. One of the lies that the Hamas put is the fact that there was a humanitarian crisis in Gaza in this campaign. Well, actually, there wasn't. When the support was entered in the Kerem Shalom pass to the Gaza Strip, the Hamas targets the international aid convoy. This is an interview has been conducted with the head of the UNRWA in Gaza. He's not known as pro-Israel. Many years we have a lot of criticize about his role in Gaza, but he said the truth that there was no political, there was no humanitarian crisis in Gaza. And he was kicked out and declared as a persona non grata. This is This is Yahya Sinwar, the head of the Hamas in Gaza. After the end of the campaign, to show you what is their treatment with their own kids. Those are the words by the IDF chief of the General Staff, Lieutenant General Aviv Kochavi, basically to say that we need to remember who are we fighting against. So to sum up, the military had limited military goals. There is no victory. There is no white flag at the end of that, and the solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is a political solution. It's not a military. The asymmetric warfare challenges, we discussed about that. The IDF acts in accordance with the international law and is making immense effort to avoid arming non-combatants while defending Israeli civilians. While Hamas is firing missiles from and to densely populated area, uses their own people as a human shields, and committed double war crime. Moral and ethics during warfare are the core of the military profession, and Hamas's misinformation and fake news versus the IDF commitment to the truth. This is what we were talking about, and I would like to accept any question. Thank you.
Thank you, Amiram. Thank you. That was excellent and very informative. We do have some questions, and I will read them out in the order that they've come, and you can give your answers. So the first question is from Phil, and he says, next time, how can Israel finish off Hamas before the world pressures for ceasefire, allowing Hamas to reload Iranian rockets?
I wish I had a good answer for that. I can assure you that the IDF is now make a debrief and investigation of all the campaigns and the lessons learned in order to make the next campaign as shorter as possible. And we are fighting, obviously, the fight is also because they need to be short because Israeli civilians are under fire, but also because we have limited international support and let's say credit. The patient especially in the Western world, there is no so much patient for any kind of violence, and the excuse of the fact that there are Israeli civilians under fire, it's sometimes not good excuse for some of the Western world especially. So.
Right. Another question from Ed. He asks two questions. The first one relates to Hezbollah. He says, Hezbollah has many, many more rockets, more powerful rockets and more dangerous rockets than Hamas, and Hezbollah has placed the rockets among civilians. Given the much greater threat to Israel, it won't have time to do rooftop taps or text messages warning people to leave as it did in Gaza. Israel bashers will cry war crimes, crimes against humanity, and violation of international law. Should Israel be doing more to prepare the world regarding Hezbollah's human shield strategy?
Yes, thanks for Ed for asking this question and to remind me to speak a little bit about Hezbollah. You're 100% right. Hezbollah has 10 times the amount of missiles and the threat than Hamas. And then in the campaign in Lebanon, I hope there is no one, but should occur, will be much more violent to both sides, but especially to Lebanon, than in Gaza. There is no time for roof knocking and warning. It will be let's say, the violence and the destruction that Lebanon as a sovereign state will will suffer because it harboring Hezbollah is expected to be immense. No time for a slow campaign. It's we know that many civilians in southern Lebanon and all around Lebanon harboring rockets, and those rockets will be attacked without warning. Not to think that one can copy the campaign from Gaza to southern Lebanon. We do every diplomatic preparation to convince that every shooting from Lebanon is an attack from Lebanon towards Israel, and the Lebanon government should be held accountable for that.
Ed's follow-up question says, it has been said that Israel cannot destroy Hamas, but only weaken it because destroying Hamas would mean Israel has to go in and rule Gaza, which it does not want to do. Would you say that that is an accurate description of the situation?
Yes, this is pretty much accurate. Militarily, the Israeli military, the IDF can conquer Gaza very fast, and then to clean it, it will take a few months. It's not to go door by door. It will take a few months. Obviously, many casualties, many international uprising, but can be done militarily. It's very important to understand that military this kind can be done. But then what next? Then you have to stay there, because the minute you go out, those terror organizations come once more. We don't want to be in Gaza. We left Gaza in 2005. We don't like what we got there. But this is what I meant when I meant that those are limited goals. Those are limited operation goals until there is a political solution. This is unfortunately every few years we'll come up with another round. The military goal is to postpone the next war as far as we can.
Okay. Colonel Jakira, there's another question. So Sonora asks, can you explain how the Iron Dome works?
Yeah. So first of all, this is one of the secret. Let's say the Iron Dome is maybe the jewel in the crown of the Israeli industry, and it's very technologically it's a miracle. So I cannot explain. I don't know, but I can tell you that it's very precise. And not every missile is being intercepted, because those that are being anticipated to fall in open area are not being intercepted. The missiles that are being intercepted are just those who supposed to hit, who are detected as like supposed to hit civilian areas or strategic infrastructures. But it's very precise and accurate system.
Okay, another question from Rosalie. Now I'm assuming that she's her question comes from those fake news images that you showed of the horrific images of children that had died or been injured in other conflicts and then being used as propaganda tools and relabeled as, oh, this has happened in Gaza. She says, how come these images don't get shared with mainstream media? Or do they?
Oh, I wish I would. I don't know, but I mean I don't know especially this. I don't know especially to answer on these three pictures that has been presented. Okay, I can share you that Israel tried to launch the campaign exactly of the explanation, asbara. In Hebrew, it's called asbara, which is, and it's sometimes because we are committed to the truth, so we are not we are not running fast enough. I mean, where an horrible picture is being presented, and you don't know where it came from because it's from Yemen or from Iraq 10 years ago. I mean, it's already in the news. Now you start to dig and to look for the truth. And 5 days later or 4 days later, you find the truth while the damage has been created already. So this is a challenge. I hope that next time we'll do it better, but it's a very difficult challenge to win the Western, the media, social networks and the public media.
Yeah, and the social media, right? Somebody releases a picture like
Definitely.
that,
So,
and it takes you 5 days. That could be hundreds of thousands of shares by then.
Imagine yourself that those journalists that I told that we are committed to the truth and committed to the security of those journalists, and those journalists are committed as well for the truth and for integrity. But in the social media, it's like a microphone to hundreds of thousands of people that are not committed to any truth. They can publish whatever they want, and this is exactly those are the asymmetric, one of the asymmetric challenges that we had in this warfare.
Another question, John asks, how, and this is a good question, how is it that over 4,000 rockets can be smuggled into Gaza with the embargo and security at borders in place?
Okay, so here is very important things to clarify. Most of those rockets are being produced in Gaza. Years ago, there were tunnels between Gaza and Egypt, and many rockets, heavy rockets, have been smuggled through the Sinai from Iran to Yemen, from Sudan to the Sinai, and then smuggled in tunnels to Gaza. So some of the rockets are originally being produced in Iran and smuggled, but now the large portion of the equipment of the rockets is being produced in Gaza itself and in the underground city, and they use the pipelines for what Israel used as water pipelines to the settlements until 2005. They cut the steel and then prepared those rockets from those pipelines, and the fuel for those rockets is the materials that being used in agriculture, many kinds of minerals. So how can you cannot limit the salt or different kind of salt enter Gaza? This is a challenge. Instead of using the money and the agriculture to grow to make the desert bloom, they put it into rockets. And instead of using the cement to build hospitals and building for good infrastructures, they're using the cement for building the tunnels. So this is about it.
Bernie asks, and this is all something I've always speculated about. So Bernie asks, when the IDF phones people, how do you know who's home and that you've reached everyone in a building?
So, yeah. Let's say that we have the intelligence to know. It's not a secret that the cellular that can be detected, that you know where the cellulars are, and like said before, if someone is without his cellular and he's asleep, then you get the small missiles to warn him, which say that we are not counting only on the phone calls, right? There is a small munition that doesn't do any harm but a lot of noise before the building is being hit by live munition.
Okay. Brad says, should Israel be at a security risk if there is a swing left in the political spectrum in the US and the US no longer funds Iron Dome?
Uh, this is a, yeah, it's a question that, that borders with the political issue that I didn't want to enter, but I would say that that the Iron Dome is crucial to Israel's security. We value much the support of the U.S. government, and we have no better ally than the U.S. And Canada as well. But obviously, if some kind of the political change come up, it's going to be a big challenge, challenge for Israel.
Myron asks, what were the Hamas casualties? How many died in the destruction of the tunnels?
So we don't know yet all of these, the accurate number are being verified. According to the Health Department organization in the Palestinian Authority, some 250 people died. We know that at least half of them are Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists. There are pretty much half of them are considered to be civilian or non-combatant. This is the numbers, and there are, let's say, that people that that were involved, but we are not sure yet what was the type of the involvement. For example, if we know that there because of the intelligence, we know that in one apartment there are five terrorists, and we hit that apartment, and we understand later on that there were 7. 2 of them, we didn't know exactly who they are. Now we understand that they are involved. There is no chance that they are involved, then they are not involved. But this is the gray area that need to be clarified, and it will be clarified eventually.
Okay, I think we have time for 2 more quick questions. The Biden administration wants to send resources to rebuild Gaza. Can the military prevent these resources from going toward Hamas military infrastructure?
No, it's not going to be the military. It's not going to be the military, the Israeli military, that will prevent the use of the international aid from being used as the to support the terror. That exactly is the challenge. In order to prevent it, you need to be there. While we are not there, there are no Israeli soldiers in Gaza Strip, so there is going to be a different mechanism to make those assurance of how not to deliver the support for the Hamas and deliver the support to the Palestinian society.
Okay, short answer if you can here, Colonel. From Sonora, did the Israeli army achieve its goals in this war?
One goal that you can say immediately that has been achieved is that we took many tactic capabilities for the Hamas. The other goal, which relate to the peace and security, so far, a few days after, it has been achieved, and deterrence, whether Hamas is being deterred or not, it's need to be examined a few years from now. So you cannot say that it's being, and deterrence is something that you can say that there is or not only when it's break. We'll see.
Okay. Well, thank you, Colonel Amiram. Thank you so much for your presentation. The questions were streaming in. I had a few prepared myself, and I think Yolanda did too, just in case we had to kind of get things going. But I think 5 minutes into your presentation, there were questions popping up already. So an excellent response from everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Colonel Jakira, as well, for lecturing and presenting, answering these questions. We are concerned with Israel. We love Israel, and the first line of defense is the IDF. And so to get the picture of what's happening straight from you as well is such a valuable thing, because it's very difficult when you try to put the picture together as you've hinted at with CNN or Reuters or social media. And so to hear from the military attaché to Canada from Israel is just a treat. And I just thank you. Yolanda, do you have a few words you would like to also add?
Yeah, sure. I would like to thank you for this brilliant presentation. I think things are a lot more clear, and I saw that people had more questions. Maybe I will be able to send them to you later on. And if you have time, you could answer, and I can send the answer to some of the people that did not get the answer. I want to thank you again for your service and for, we are not, we know that without the Israeli army, there is no Israel. And we want to thank you for your service and for everything that you did. And of course, for coming to speak to us. And I also want to thank my friends Zev and Minda in Ottawa that made that connection with you. Thank you. And yeah, that's about it. And I just want to remind everyone that we have an event on the 20th. It's a Sunday, the 20th of June, and it's Bridges for Peace chose not to get involved with it. But if you want to register, I can send you a link. We're going to have a conversation with Emily Rose. She is the Middle East correspondent of I-24 in Israel. She's a former Winnipegger and a great person to ask questions about Operation Guardian of the Walls and what she saw and what her opinions are. So we hope you can join us on the 20th for another presentation.
And then one more event that Bridges for Peace is part of with Winnipeg Friends of Israel is going to be on June 24th at 7 p.m. It's called Exposing Media Prejudice Against Israel, and we're going to have presenter Mike Fiegelman with honest reporting. And so we highly recommend everyone to attend that one as well, and that will complete these 3 lectures. So thank you once again, Colonel Jakira. Thank you, Yolanda. It's a blessing. And have a good night and shalom, everyone.
Shalom. Good night. Good night. Bye-bye. What?
Summation.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have.